So hey everybody, and welcome back to this episode of the Love Like Crazy podcast. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacey Coleman. And in fact, this is our very first live recording of a podcast at our very first Love Like Crazy Marriage Conference here at Journey Church. And so we have an audience with us today.
Hey everybody, give a shout out. Come on.
We are so excited to be doing this. Definitely an experiment for us to step out and do this live. First of all, I want to just thank all of our faithful listeners. I know we have many here in this room here today. And so we just appreciate all of the feedback that we get, the reviews, the ratings that we're getting. We just thank you that you're participating with us and listening in on this podcast. And so for those who are new and have never listened to the Love Like Crazy podcast, you can find it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So just so glad that everybody is here
Yeah,
today
and I'm going to jump in here
us.
and say just thank you so much for helping us to build the podcast. You know, the heart of this podcast is to build a stronger marriage, build a stronger family.
Right.
That's really what this podcast has been all about from day one. We just wanted it as a resource for people to be able to go to as something that would help them in their life and in their marriage as they're going through the grind. And thank you so much for helping us to build this. And if you would do us a favor, for those of you who are listening, like, subscribe, share, help us get the word out as we build this podcast to be able to reach even more and more families. And so we are blessed today. We've got some great guests with us. Now, I'm going to say guests, but good friends.
Yeah.
We have Darren and Marci DeLaune with us today, all the way from Arkansas. Now, I say that, but in reality, we're recording this here in Greenwell Springs Central, City of Central, and you guys are from here. Y'all moved there many years ago, but y'all are actually from here. So it's great to have y'all with us today.
Thank you.
No, it's great to be back. This is definitely our home state, and this is definitely our home ground. So
I just got to ask a quick question, and I think everybody here is probably is wondering the same thing. Is it go Hogs or is it go Tigers?
Go Tigers!
Go Tigers. That's what I'm talking about. For those of you who do not live in the Baton Rouge or metro area or in Louisiana, we're talking about the LSU Tigers, greatest football team
That's right.
in the world. Okay, just say. All right.
Purple and gold.
That's right.
So I didn't mean just jump in and take over. I'm sorry, but I'm a preacher. That's what I do.
Oh,
I like to talk.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, we just want to welcome Darren and Marci, and they've been our guest speakers here at the Love Like Crazy Marriage Conference, and they're executive pastors at New Life Church in Conway, Arkansas. They have 2 grown kids and a new grandson.
That's right.
And so we're just excited to have them here to talk about strengthening marriages and families.
And I think the topic of this today, you guys have y'all shared last night, y'all shared this morning, and what y'all shared last night was great. We all laughed a lot. There was some great depth there, but this morning kind of took it to another level, and it was really, really awesome. And today, as we go into this episode of this podcast, we want to talk to y'all about the seasons that you walk through. I think that everybody in this room we're all in different seasons, and what we have experienced now as empty nesters and enjoying life as our kids have moved out and building their own families. It's a great season in our life, but there are some seasons we miss out on as well. You know, I miss the toddlers and all that kind of stuff. Why don't you guys, let's start off in this direction. Why don't y'all tell everybody how y'all met? I know y'all kind of talked about this a little bit last night. Kind of tell everybody how you met and kind of what's going on in y'all's lives, and just kind of give us the lowdown on Darren and Marci.
yeah, I think what's interesting for us is we literally been married 31 years, but on top of that, we were together 6 years prior to marriage. And we don't believe in long-lasting dating. That's probably not the best thing. I asked her actually to marry me when she was in the 11th grade.
Yeah.
And
I was not putting a ring on my
hold
finger
on.
in the 11th
Let me stop you.
grade. My daddy wouldn't let me anyway.
Your daddy wasn't. So you were in the 11th grade? What grade
I
was
was
you
a
in?
senior.
Okay, you were a senior. All right. So it wasn't that bad. It's
But,
not like, she was a freshman and you were like,
no,
marry me.
no,
you know?
none of that.
Okay.
But, if we go back, I mean, literally we can go back, my 12-year-old birthday party. And we were at the pool there, and she showed up. And
I was invited.
You were invited.
Just show up.
And
Party crasher.
Party crasher.
party crasher. She was stalking me, at a very early age.
Yeah.
She heard you were there. That's
Yeah,
why
oh
she
yeah.
was there.
But we go back so many years in our life, and it's hard to believe that here we are jumping almost literally 40 years later, and we're still madly in love, crazy in love with one another. And but in all that, there's been a lot of history.
A lot of seasons.
A lot of seasons. But we grew up together. We experienced a lot of different things early on, at an early age, and but again, now married 31 years.
31 years of marriage. That's, it's funny because whenever I was younger, you'd say 31 years of marriage. I'm like, golly, that's forever.
They're ancient.
Yeah, it's
must
like
be really old.
now it doesn't really seem like 31 years is that long. It's like it seems very short, but there are a lot of things that have made up those 31 years. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about, talking about the seasons of life, kind of walk us through some of the different seasons and of what y'all have experienced over these 31 years.
Yeah, I shared this earlier here at our conference, but the first season, I think more than anything for us, it was a season of for salvation. And for me, I got saved at the age of 16, and prior to that, I went through a lot of challenges and a lot of difficult times. But through that, immediately, once I got saved, one of the first things the Lord really hit my heart with was pursuing her at a very early age. And so we grew up a little bit fast there, and we started dating. And like I said, over the next 6 years, we started kind of building and doing a lot of life together. And then finally that led to me asking her to marry me.
Yeah. One season that just came to mind real quickly is we're here in Greenville Springs, Arkansas, and it was very shortly after we had started dating, even though we were really good friends. And my older brother was in a wreck right down the street at the curve at the Circle K, and he was pronounced dead on the scene right there. And that really drew us together in our faith very, very early on. The police came, got my parents, rushed to the hospital, and I remember him showing up in his green step-side truck and us just getting on our knees together as a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old and holding on to our faith with everything that we have. And my brother, who was supposed to even make it was a vegetable, he now has 4 children and multiple grandchildren and is a walking miracle. But it was such a moment, an early moment that, you know what, God, you are able to do anything. And it's sustained us throughout our marriage.
And I think little did we know that moment of faith, especially us learning what it meant to be there for one another, that led us in the sense of having hope, because there's a lot of other challenges that came along that literally tested our faith, at times tested our marriage as well. But our first point of dating, it truly was. A lot of the time was spent at the hospital overnight, seeking God together and just believing God. And that brought us really close together.
It was an anchor.
Yeah, early on.
I think that's kind of a theme of our marriage and our life, is that God is an anchor to our soul. He's there during the storms and the rough seas. He's an anchor. So we just always know that when we can't do it, we need to get on our knees and pray.
So early on, you guys discovered, you faced something that was very difficult. You face adversity, and you discover, even though you weren't married, but your relationship in Christ helped anchor you through that, and probably drew you two even closer together in your relationship.
Oh, definitely.
So now, where y'all are in it, because I know y'all have 2 kids. Y'all are like us. You've jumped into the grandkid club as well.
Yeah.
And so kind of tell us a little bit about, like, from when y'all got married. Last night we got to see a picture of y'all's wedding day, and y'all were babies.
We were babies.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. Did y'all like the picture?
Just turned 20.
I thought it was kind of cool to see that, and it's just one of those things that every groom, whenever he's young and at his wedding, and his wife walks down in that dress, he's just taken aback. So take us from that moment. You guys got married. Take us through the kiddo years and kind of bring us to where we are now.
Yeah. So when we first got married, one of the things that we were talking through was actually surrendering to the call of ministry. And so that was a big challenge, I guess, for both of us, because we really didn't know what was next. Yeah. And both of us are pretty anal, pretty OCD when it comes to planning. And so when we first started talking about marriage, we pretty much laid our life out. for the next 50 years. And just being honest with you guys. And so we had everything laid out, everything planned.
All the way through retirement, and we're 20.
All
Our
the way through
1-year-old, our
retirement.
5-year-old.
Y'all had a 1-year plan, 5-year, 25-year plan.
Yeah,
Y'all
we started that way back in the day,
I don't
when we
think
did
we
that.
planned that far ahead.
Literally, he had it planned to our retirement.
And
That's awesome.
so one of the first things that we had to really look at was this whole thing about really serving God together. But the biggest thing was it's kind of laying down some of the goals and ambitions that we both had. And in that, we didn't understand that, but it was like we knew God was calling us, but we didn't understand necessarily that calling. And but one of the things I learned right off the bat with my dear wife here was that she truly said, look, whatever God's calling you to, I'm right there with you because we're called together.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the first things that we learned really, from a scripture standpoint of truly being one. And God began to put our hearts together for a desire to really have a heart for people. And that desire led into ministry. And then for us, the pastoral ministry. But it didn't necessarily go the way we thought it would.
Never does.
And
Never does.
we went back to college and finished our degree. And I got a degree in exercise physiology and also a minor in biological science. And
that goes well with ministry.
that goes so well with ministry.
I think you're quite overqualified.
And then from there, I went back and I was looking at I was at LSU, but looking at organizational administration and just all these things. But again, we kept feeling that pull back to, and let's do ministry together, which ultimately led us to plant a church. But if you back up, so we get married and we're so excited. We got our plan. And we decided on in the first time I'm proposing to her, we decided we were going to go buy our first home.
$2,500.
$2,500.
Just use your imagination.
And so, so we went up the road to college, and there was this little trailer sitting by the college where we went to school at. And I was so excited that I'm providing for her. And so I kind of pushed her up into the trailer. We opened the door, and there's
no
a
stairs.
homeless.
Yeah, that push.
There's a homeless dude sitting there sleeping in the trailer. And not only was he sleeping in the trailer, but you can just go with your imagination. We had to go through and step through a lot of things for me to show her the trailer.
And it's like, you just stay here. It's cold outside. You're not hurting a thing. Looking at it.
But again, the whole thought was we were content.
Yeah.
And you guys know that, those that are listening on, here, that there's a lot of times, love can be blind and love can make you crazy. But the fact that she committed early on with that, and again, not knowing, but that's kind of how we started. And we started, early on with that. We got into ministry, and it was very taxing at the beginning because we were still in school full time, going to college. And then we also worked full time in 3 different parishes, or if you're listening, counties. And we were also pastoring. And so most of our time was never together. And we joke about this because one of the things people ask us about, well, man, how's it like, to be empty nesters, to really be back just y'all again? And we said, look, this is the first time we ever were not, in a sense, not having somebody with us. Because the first time we got married, right when we came back from our honeymoon, we had someone live with us.
Was it the homeless guy?
It was not the homeless guy.
It wasn't him, but in the next few years, he could have just come on too.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was someone else who was dear to us, a family member. But we literally got welcomed with the large VHS video cameras, and he videoed us opening our presents, our wedding presents, and he lived with us. Our home was a 10-foot wide, 60-foot long trailer that we put about $100 worth of caulk to caulk it together. So we were in very close quarters. Yeah.
And again, if you are a young newlywed, I would not advise you to have someone live with you. And if you're a young newlywed, I would encourage you not to live with your parents as well. And so we learned a hard lesson through that. But after that, at that particular point, after this person moved out, we started taking in kids. And these were older kids. These were teenage boys. Most of them did not have a male figure in their life. Many of them were around their grandma. But a lot of those boys began to live with us. And in all that, we just learned this whole thing about serving others, which sounds great. And it is, it was a God moment. But I think for those years, we put off each other a lot. And, soon you fast forward again. Well, all of a sudden, she starts going to work. We're excited about all this. We're finally going to get some money going here. And so I take her out. We do what we call these mini moons. All right. A mini moon.
Okay.
Instead of a honeymoon, we said we're going to do mini moons. And what mini moons were is once a year, we would just get away. And if that meant slipping into the back of the truck under the stars, we didn't have much money. But this time, man, we were doing it big time. All right. Because she was landing a job and it was like, let's go somewhere that's nice. And so we decided to take the mini moon, and I'll let you kind of just continue the story.
We were going to go to Asphodel Plantation for a night. And I knew because I'd landed my job the week before as a teacher in Denham Springs. And so we go to Asphodel, and we have not sat down to lunch for 3 minutes. And he pulls out his big old planner and starts telling me the next 5-year plan, what we're going to say.
So romantic.
For the
So
romantic. And he starts, he's had it all written down. What he didn't know is that the day after I accepted the job, I found out I was pregnant. And I did not tell him for the week because I knew it was not in the 5-year plan. And so I had my test. I had this little onesie, the whole bit. So I let him go through lunch. I let him give him the whole 5-year spill. So we get to the room.
So we were heading back to the room, and I was thinking romance.
A
little romance.
No, you needed to amend your calendar plan. That's what you needed to do.
But, it was going to be business time, and little did I know it was time for something else.
So I give him this gift, and he unwraps it, and he looks at the onesie, and he literally walks out of the room. He left. He got in his truck, and he left. He didn't say, congratulations, I love you, babe. He left the plantation in the truck. We didn't have cell phones. I'm like, oh, heck. So he comes.
It wasn't part of his plan.
It wasn't part of the plan. He did not know how to handle things that were not a part of his plan.
He did not have a landline in his truck.
Oh, no landline. No landline. But I remember just riding around, and again, the shock of it all. And, but again, in my mindset was the planning. And again, self, leading self, and not necessarily always trusting what, God and what he had in our life. But immediately something clicked. I'm riding around. I'm like, for some reason, again, I'm so ignorant. And I'm like, okay, she's pregnant. So I stop by the store, and I get her a big gallon of milk. And I'm thinking, hey, this baby's got to have protein. All right? And so she was a Coke drinker, and I'm like, So I come back in, I walk in the door, I throw the gallon of milk at her, and I'm like, drink up, baby, let's go now. And I just switched gears at that moment about, being a dad and then taking care of my wife. And it was an interesting night, to say the least.
Interesting night, yes.
I love it. Not ice cream, not candy, not a
gallon
card
of-
like congratulations.
A gallon of
Borden's milk.
Borden's
And
milk.
it's like,
With
you
the
need calcium.
With the ultimatum, no more Coke.
No more Coke. Oh, yeah. And so it wasn't like, again, you fast forward, and that's when we had our first child. One of the things that, I knew early on when we started dating that Marci had some physical challenges as well. And one of the things that the doctors had told her at times is that most likely she wouldn't carry a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And but in all that, again, we had peace, and we knew God called us together, and it's just like, okay, we trust God. And so, after the shock and awe of me in my plan of her being pregnant, the reality hit me, hey, man, God's blessing us with a child. And we didn't know, back in those days, you didn't know what you were having. So we called it Baby D. And that was our last name, DeLaune. And so we just said, hey, man, let's pray for Baby D. And, and again, y'all can you can imagine me, here's psycho health nut back in the day, and watching everything she put in her body and all those things and what she's taking in, health. And one day I'm going out. It was the first week in August. And at that time, I was coaching football, and I was going out. It was 2-a-days. And right when I was walking out of the office, the phone rings. And so I tell the coaches, hey, I'll be out there. And I grab the phone, and at that point, she tells me she's at the hospital and that things were not looking good. And so immediately I kind of take a deep breath, and next thing you know, the doctor's telling her that there's going to be difficulty carrying this baby. And so again, here we are, young. We were 24 at that age.
23.
23, 24.
How long had you been married at this time?
Just a little under 3 years.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so, again, trying to understand what was going on. And so, we get there, and then doctor's trying to talk to me. And again, in my mind, all I'm just thinking is, God, you blessed us with this child, but what is that going to mean? What are we going to go through? And there were several things that were spoken and all these different things. And she winds up coming home, and then our world literally changed. And at such a young age, and Marcy had to go to basically bedridden, is what they called it back in those days.
Yep. So I was in full-blown labor by the time I got to the hospital. I had went into labor in Winn-Dixie, right over here in the produce section, and and so I was in full-blown labor and
At 23 weeks, was
at
that?
24 weeks.
24
And
weeks.
so anyway, it wasn't looking like I would carry him, but we just again believed that God was an anchor to our soul, and we were going to get on our knees and pray, and whatever God had, He was in control.
Yeah.
And so I was on my left side for a few months, and baby D was born. He was preemie. He was in the NICU and had a lot of challenges. And so that was just another season. We often say the DeLaunes, there's always a season. And so he had a lot of health challenges, to say the least. We were at Children's in New Orleans a lot, and it was a rough season.
Well, I thought you were going to say whenever the doctor came in and like, this is going to be a difficult pregnancy, you're going to be like, she needs more milk.
Yeah.
Look, he guarded. He was making sure I did not drink Coke for sure.
Well, now, D is
D is now 27 years old.
Yeah.
And went through a lot of medical challenges early on. And from that, he also had a lot of learning disabilities. And so through that, we looked at it, and it was such a hard season because for 7 months, we couldn't lay him down. He had a particular valve that was not developed. It wasn't a bottle. She had to feed him with a syringe. And she held that baby. So our living room, it became our bedroom. It became everything. And those 7 months, it was very taxing, very challenging on our marriage. But we didn't understand that bond that she was having with that child. Again, the enemy would love to destroy and all that, but God always has
He has a plan.
And, so God took that whole situation and that bond that they have. Here he is, 27 years old. And I don't think there's a day that goes by without him texting you, calling you. And that wound up being a blessing because of the bond that those two created. And so he had a lot of learning disabilities, and he struggled through some things in his learning style. And, we would worry about this and that. But again, that season always brought us to a place, and we'll say this a lot, on our knees. And just, God, we used to pray, God, do this, God, heal this. But all of a sudden, our prayer changed to, God, let your will be done.
And show us how you're going to use it, because he always does. He never wastes an opportunity, and he doesn't make a mistake. It wasn't like he said, oh, heck, I didn't know about this. I was surprised you were going to go to bed rest. He knew, and he saw, and he had a plan and a provision all the way through. And I look at our son now, and for any of you out there who have gone through the battle with dyslexia, I want to let you know it's an advantage to you and everybody around you, because you're the smartest people on planet Earth. But I look now and I say, it's the struggles that make us stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our son's motto became in life. Struggles make us stronger, because we could sit here for days and talk about the struggles that in seasons we've been through in our marriage. But like I said, it started early, and we knew that God was an anchor.
That's right.
Well, you don't call him Baby D anymore.
No, he's big. He's Big D now.
He's Big D.
No doubt.
And he's married, got a child of his own.
Yes.
And
What a testimony. That's just awesome to see God's faithfulness
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
through
Oh,
all
yeah.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
Such a testimony.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all those challenges, God blessed us with a little girl, too.
Yeah.
And so we had baby number 2. And if you guys are listening here, kids are different. And kids have different styles and different this and that. And it's amazing how, again, as a parent, though, you just love no matter what. And through some of those challenges, one of the blessings that we have, though, is our son and our daughter, they're best friends.
That's awesome.
And they love each other to this day. We still have family night. Matter of fact, for Valentine's Day, we're thinking, hey, we got some young married. They're going to go out. We'll watch the grandbaby. Their whole idea for Valentine's Day was for everybody to come over. How many of y'all know that changed my plans, all right?
Again.
But then to go
Yeah.
visit their grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
And here they are, 27 and 24, and that was their ideal Valentine's Day. It's just to be a family together and support one another. And so that was a big season for us. And over the years, obviously with education and watching our kids grow up, a big prayer that we had also is that our kids would always be best friends. And that was something that was challenging at times. And many of you parents know that or are listening that there's times you look at your kids and it's like they hate one another, but give you hope that will turn around one day. And that was definitely some seasons here and there where they kind of went apart. But the
As
amazing
all
thing
kids
is,
do.
yeah, but the amazing thing is seeing them come together. And so now both of our kids, as we said, they're both married, both successful in their own ways. And we truly blessed now, not just to have 2 kids, but now to have 4
Yeah.
kids.
And that's what, just also the provision. Like I said, I wasn't supposed to have children. And sometimes they'll just barge in the house and, it's chaotic like in everybody's house when everybody's over and Rhett's running around. And I just stand back and I'm like, God, you are so good. Satan told me I would have none and I have 4 plus a grandchild. And it's just his provision, So it's good.
Well,
And there's nothing that makes a mama heart so full than to have all of them
Right.
together
Oh, yeah.
like that. And the family nights, we also do that. And I mean, it's such a joy, when you see them come together and they're laughing and they're cutting up and just, a lot to be thankful for and to see God's faithfulness.
And in that, this season, like we said, before I did become pregnant with D, for all those of you out there listening who may say yes, but I've been in fertility and trying to have a baby and I can't have a baby. So let you know, look at ways that God may be providing other than what your plan is. It's like Darren said, is that we had our plans, we had our thoughts. But God has a plan and a reason for the season that you're in. So when we took in I always call him our first son, Eric. He was 16 at the time, and he was a provision too. He was a provision from my heart to nurture and to love. So sometimes it may be through fostering or adoption or having your own children, but whatever the desire of your heart, if you give it to the Lord and give it to his will, he makes a way where there seems to be no way.
That's right.
That is so good.
I love hearing that because it's like, a lot of times we get our plans. I know the plans that I have for my life, plans for good and nothing bad to ever happen,
That's our interpretation of the scripture, right?
Yeah. No struggles whatsoever.
Yeah. And I know that, we've had difficulties. We've been married 31 years as well. Just like y'all, we hit 32 years this year. And there's been difficulties along the way. And I actually, Stacey and I, we've joked about this and I've shared this with the church. We were having a conversation one day about what you would go back and change. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what are the things that you would change? And I said, I wouldn't change anything. And I told her, I said that, the things that have happened that have been hard, those are the things that have made me who I am. And then she thought about that and she said, well, there's actually some things that I would change.
I know. I'm like, I would.
And there are a couple things that I would rearrange. And I said, I would change one thing. And she said, what's that? And I said, I would go back and tell my younger self, invest in Bitcoin. Invest in Bitcoin. So, but seriously,
I would tell your younger self that too.
But yet, you're not immune from things happening. And what I love about all this is how y'all sit down and you have your planner. You've got everything. I know you.
Yeah.
You are a planner. I go in your office and everything is mapped out, and it's pretty amazing how your brain works. But I can just see at that dinner and you're going over all this stuff, and then she tells you she's pregnant. You're probably like, I wasted all this time on all these plans,
I'm pregnant. bed and he's worried about his charts being messed up. Messed up the graph.
God always has a way. He's always got something, even whenever it seems difficult, even whenever it seems bad. Those are the seasons he wants to grow us and work in us and change us. So I love that. So let's kind of move into the season where y'all are now. That was early years and the difficulties and the hardships. And I know right now you guys are in a season where y'all are empty nesting, loving your grandbaby, all that good stuff. There have been some difficulties along the way.
So tell everybody how awesome it is to be an empty nester. That's what I was thinking.
Ooh,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Uh-huh.
So like I said, and I'm going to make sure I keep this in context after last night. But no, it really is. Like I said, we didn't have that newlywed season. So it's almost like we're just rediscovering each other after those hectic years of raising kids and work and building the American dream, quote, quote. It's like, wow, you want to go take a walk? You want to go sit in the backyard and watch the stars or the sunset. So it's really just enjoyable just to be together.
Yeah, it is.
In the season and to have that break because you're not trying to run, kids to basketball, football, dance, cheer. It's about us now.
Right.
And it's just really fun.
Just to be together, maybe sometimes take a nap.
Taking a nap is great. It is great. Yep, like you said earlier.
And not feel bad about it.
Exactly. No guilt.
Yeah.
No guilt.
My favorite part of the empty nesting is we can just pick up and go on a trip.
Yeah.
At any. Well, I mean, granted, if we have the funds, but like say, hey, let's just get in the car and just drive, or go do.
But I thought, like if we could go somewhere, I wouldn't have to still answer to my mom and dad, and they still want to know where we are, at what time,
Did you land?
You got to give them all the details. And it's like, man, we're, in our 50s. I'm still
I do it to my kids and they're in their 20s.
And checking in,
that's right.
I call my mom when I'm in my vehicle so I can talk to her on my car phone. And every time I call her, she's like, so where are y'all going?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times she's like, is Stacey with you? And I'm like, if we're traveling, a lot of times I'm like, is she sleeping right now? Because that's how we travel. I drive and she sleeps. And every now and then I'm like, wake up. You got to keep me awake or we're going to wind up in the ditch. But now this is one of the things that our kids don't understand. We go to the camp from time to time and they're like, what are y'all going to do at the camp this weekend? Like we don't have a ski boat and all that kind of stuff. We hunt up there during hunting season. And we were talking about this yesterday as well, but the boys are like, "What? It's boring to go just." And I'm like, "They're like, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, we're just going to read a book.
Yeah.
We're going to, maybe watch a movie together,
Talk.
just walk, take a walk,
Take a walk. Yeah.
And they don't understand. They're like, that is the most boring thing in the world to them.
Just enjoy the quietness.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is
being
great
together.
when we're up there and it's quiet and there's nothing going on, and just to be able to rest. And I used to tell Stacey, she would fuss at me because I'm like kind of like go, 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 go. Don't take time to rest. And I used to tell her, I'll rest when I get to heaven.
Yeah.
I do not like that statement.
She hates that statement.
No.
And so after many years of, getting in trouble for saying that, I finally realized like, it's okay to take a nap. It's okay to rest. It's okay to slow down a little bit. So.
And that was a big challenge, to be honest with you guys here, is that, I always thought that, that was laziness.
Yeah.
And I always interpreted rest as laziness. And a lot of that comes back from my upbringing, working at a very young age. And, it's kind of like you. It's like, well, one day I'll rest, and that'll probably be for eternity. But, in all that, it always pushed me to a point where, talking about some of the different experiences that we had is, years ago, I woke up one night, it was about 12:30 at night, and, I decided to go get some water. And man, I was feeling chest pains and arm pains. And, and as I went into the kitchen, the thing I remember is grabbing a glass of water, and then something hit me physically, and I crushed the glass. Next thing you know, I fell on the ground, and it woke my daughter up. And she came in there, she found me pretty much in a fetal position, and they kind of got me settled in. And again, this is the type of person I am, knowing symptoms of like a heart attack, knowing these things from the medical point of view of it. I decided, again, the hard-headedness you know what? I'm not going to the hospital. And I'm just going to go lay back down.
I'll just sweat this one out.
Oh, my
sweated
goodness.
out, and I was sweating, brother. Let me tell you. But I went back and I tried to lay down, and
Hospital bag.
she went and packed a
Yep.
bag. And then at 7 a.m., it hit me again. Well, this time I fell out. And she told me, at that point, flatlined and everything.
I had to
And
give him CPR at the age of 40.
and so she was.
Were you certified?
I've been certified.
Yeah, okay. All right. It's like,
Yeah. I encourage it for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
certified or not, at that moment, you're
At
qualified.
that moment,
Yeah,
you're going to
I
figure it
was,
out.
But yeah, so it was a very scary moment. Our daughter had already left for soccer practice, and very luckily, my son was just walking out the door. So I screamed to him. I started CPR. He called the ambulance, and that was heart attack number 1 at the age of 40 because of the pace, because of the stressors of this life, because of the over planning. And the lack of rest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You didn't plan for the heart attack.
I didn't
We
plan
didn't
for
plan
that.
for the
No.
heart attack.
Matter of fact, I'll be honest, I was very confident
Mhm.
and probably to the point of being kind of conceited, especially with my health. And I didn't understand, people that had health problems or, so there was a little bit of a judgmental spirit. And I would look at people and I was like, well, why? Why are you unhealthy?
A little pride there.
And definitely a lot of pride, not a little. And it's amazing, after I went through that particular season and then having to, again, learn to function in certain ways and losing all my strength and learn how to rebuild it, it was a challenge. But again, in that, we got a little phrase here that God never wastes an experience. And it gave us such a compassion, especially for me,
Mhm.
of having compassion for people that go through, especially physical things and physical traumas. And so we go through all that. And again, you would think hard-headed me would learn from that.
I told y'all he was hard-headed.
It's so, it wasn't long after that, I got right back in the pace.
Yeah.
And, ministry can definitely be taxing. And through all that, I found myself again getting up before sun rises. Again, that's what I was taught. Sun comes up, you need to be working. Sun goes down, you stop working. And
But
so
for
my
him,
days,
he kept working.
so my days kept getting longer and longer and longer. And in all the planning, in on all the adding, we found ourselves at times just drifting. And because there's a lot of times when I would come home, and even though I was home, I was not there. And I know a lot of you have experienced all that. And, and so we went through some challenges with our health, both of us. I've actually had 14 surgeries, many back surgeries as well, multiple knee surgeries. But a lot of it stemmed, this past 2 years ago, here I was back into this same routine. And on October 16th, 2022, I found myself again having that pain. And it was a Sunday night. I was actually watching Sunday night football. It was the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. I won't forget that moment at all. And I'm sitting there watching the game. She's outside working with the lights on. That's just her. She likes grounding in the dirt and
I was working in my flower bed.
working in her flower beds. And man, at that moment, I knew something was happening. And not to get emotional, but this time I didn't think I was coming back.
Yeah.
And so I remember just grabbing the phone to call my son. And, my words to him was going to be, hey, take care of your mom. And next thing you know, I wake up. It was, 3 days later.
Mhm.
And I wake up and it's like, whew, okay, I'm back. And it's like, wow, man. And at that moment, this was in 2022,
Mhm.
I knew God was getting my attention.
Yeah.
And you're talking about rest, that was
He
something.
wasn't saying get the planner out and make another
Wow.
He wasn't
5-year
saying
I
doing
burned that
man.
planner and hit the computer and the phone. I'm like, you're going to look at me now.
Burn
yeah.
the planner. That's a good
And
one.
so,
Okay.
we went through some challenging times, and we look back now over the past year and a half.
Yeah.
But God is really, again, He's used some of these things. Again, I'm hard-headed, and I think y'all know that clearly. But it's like He's used some of these things for me to really have a second chance at life.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt it's a different meaning now, in the season that we're in now because of that season.
So early on, the difficulties you faced, God was teaching you something through all that, with your
Yeah.
pregnancy and the,
Yeah.
baby D and all that. But here you are later in life, still having some difficulties now health-wise, and God's teaching you.
Mhm.
He's like, hey, slow down a little
That's
bit.
right.
Yeah.
That's
It's
right.
okay. You got this.
That's right.
And put the planner away and just enjoy life with your wife and with your family.
Mhm.
So I love it. That's huge. I'm learning. I know you're sitting over there like, goodness, I hope he gets this.
Yes.
But
Oh, yeah.
you have to admit, I'm actually doing much, much better.
I was just going to say, you are doing much better at that,
Well.
resting.
Okay, let's take a nap.
You took a nap the other day. I was very
did.
proud of you.
And I felt guilty for doing
And he
it.
felt guilty, but
I'm just kidding. I did.
we'll get past that.
We actually have days where we're like, you know what? Today there's nothing planned.
Mhm.
Let's just do nothing.
Mhm.
Let's just have a day, maybe watch a movie on Netflix together. I learned years ago, you don't say we're just going to chill and watch Netflix. Yeah.
That has a meaning.
And the staff was like, you can't say that. So I'm like, I didn't know I'm old. But it's just like literally to just watch a movie and chill out and do nothing. It actually feels, nice. And it's sad that as you get older, you have to get older to realize that. Because when you're young, we're so programmed, just go, go, go,
Oh,
go,
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to hear you guys talk about this.
There
So,
becomes this appreciation,
Yeah.
just for life and just
Mm.
all that you have. And the
You
struggles.
said earlier, Jay, like you wouldn't go back and change anything. And I look back and I've had this discussion with both of my children and had to say, I'm sorry, there's a lot I would change.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the pace that we chose to run at in life. We talked about a little bit earlier about being human beings and not human doers. And if you're in your 20s and in your 30s, you're in your 40s or 80s, I guess it goes for all of us. I just encourage you to really to be and not to have to do all the time. That's what Jesus did, and as believers, we talk about we want to be like Christ. Well, he spent most of the time fishing or on the Sea of Galilee. And, I've been to Israel a few times, and it's my favorite place just to go sit on the shore and look out over that water. It's a lake. It wasn't anything fancy. There was nothing fancy about Jesus. When you go to Israel, you just see that so clearly. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't complicated. There was nothing rushed. And I think that we look at being like him, having our marriages look like him, our families look like him. We just need to slow it down. And he meant to give us this life to enjoy. And that's one thing we've learned with, the surgeries and the heart attacks for Darren. And I was diagnosed with a debilitating disease 10 years ago. And I shared with the audience earlier, it was at that point, I love people and I love being around people and having people in my home. I just love it. But I felt like I need to really focus on who's going to be on the first 2 rows of my funeral one day. Because I didn't know. And I still don't know when that's going to be. But no, none of us do, y'all. None of us are promised tomorrow. So I just really think that as we have a takeaway, it's just to slow down and enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
I think that's a key word right there. You talk about slowing down, but enjoying it. I remember Chris Hodges said that years ago. We were in a conference and he said, enjoy where you're at.
Yeah.
Because we had gone through a year, the church was growing. There was a lot of stuff happening. And I remember we got to the end of the year to roll into and I actually made the comment to Stacey, I'm like, this past year went by so quick and we had so much activity. I didn't really take time to enjoy, where we were. And then Chris says that in a conference and I realized it's not just for church, it's for with my kids, with my spouse, everything. Enjoy where you are. So I would tell everybody here and especially our listeners as well, learn to enjoy where you're at and learn to enjoy what God's doing in your life. So I think that's a great takeaway. So you have anything you want to add to that?
That's great advice. And we just appreciate y'all being here with us today and sharing your hearts because I know it's gonna help a lot of our listeners.
Yeah. Thank y'all for giving it your time to come be a part.
Well, it's been a blessing. There's no doubt about it. We look at certain phrases as we kind of close out on that is, we learn different things, obviously, through the things we experience. And like you just said, just enjoy the moment. And I would say, another big thing that we've learned, and we got this particularly from my dad. And but there's a phrase that my parents always had in their house, and it's kind of become a phrase for us as a family. And whether it be my siblings and the in-laws or whatever, but we've adopted this, and I think it comes back to hope, because no matter what we go through, no matter what moment we're in life, but God.
But God.
But God. And I think that's one of the things, again, in our marriage. It's like you might be facing this, you might be facing that, but God.
Yeah.
You might be going through this, you might be going through that with your kids, or maybe a wayward kid, or this or that, but God. And that's just given us a lot of strength of when all's said and done,
But God.
But God. And we're so thankful for God's grace and all that.
That's a great nugget to take away today. And as we wrap this up, to have something to realize with our marriage, with our family, with everything that we face in life, God always has the final say.
That's right.
Everything is. The enemy might be saying this, but God.
And He is good.
He is.
That's right.
So, you have anything you want to add to that?
Can you let our listeners know where they can find you, like on social media? Any of that kind of?
Okay.
Yeah, the webpage is newlifechurch.tv. And from there, also social media, we got Instagram, IG, it's DMDELAUNE. And one thing you'll see on our Instagram, it kind of shifted over the past couple of years. It's mainly about the family.
Yeah.
It's the moments and capturing those moments. And you can find us on Facebook as well. It's I don't even know what my face. I think it's D DeLaune, and hers is M DeLaune.
I've actually had taken a little social media break.
Praise God.
For about 2 years. That doesn't mean it'll be forever. I may be back on, but my name is Marci DeLaune, and try to find me. I'm out there somewhere.
I love it. I participate on social media because it's one of those things that are necessary.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan though. I might get blocked or something from them as a result of saying that on this podcast. But have you guys enjoyed this today? Come on, give them a great big hand clap today. Love it. And Stacey, I always enjoy doing this with you as well. We've been doing this podcast now for almost a year. Love it. And if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, remember, like, subscribe, share, help us get the word out. And we have just had an absolute blast today with you guys and throughout this conference. And thank you for being a part. And that ends this episode of Love Like Crazy. As always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is Love Like Crazy.